Hi, my name is Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video what I'd like to do is to discuss some reasons, some of them speculative, some of them stated, why Jo Swinson, the leader of the Liberal Democrats, will not support Jeremy Corbyn to become a caretaker Prime Minister and replace Boris Johnson before a general election. But first, if you find yourself enjoying the video, then please click the like button and subscribe to the channel. So this is a bit impromptu really, because I was prompted by a comment on a video that was saying why not go through the reasons why Jo Swinson is not supporting Jeremy Corbyn as Prime Minister. And I sort of went through one yesterday when I was talking about the general election posturing. Now there's we know the general election is coming, or we sort of know it's coming. It's very likely to be coming either way, whether we get the extension or not. And Jo Swinson is very keen to make hay while the sun shines here. She has a Conservative Party that has lurched very much to the right in order to try and take out the Brexit Party, thus giving her relatively easy access to the centre-right. She's got a Labour Party that's lurched very much to the left, and so she's also got relatively easy access to the centre-left. And you can sort of tell she's electioneering because she's coming out with different things. So to capture the centre-left vote, she's really just pushing this anti-Brexit stance. Now, it's a stance that is genuinely felt by her. She really is opposed to Brexit. Her party is really opposed to Brexit. But nonetheless, this is the drum she's beating to attract those centre-left votes. Centre-right votes, sure, there are Remainers on the centre-right as well, a great many of them. But because Boris Johnson has lurched so far to the right, there are more to be had as well. And this is why in the last few weeks she's been talking up effectively the same language that was used to justify austerity. So she's using the same language that, the Conservatives were using when she was in government with them between 2010 2015. So she's clearly trying to position herself to grab as many seats as possible. So there is simply that reason. She wants to make clear how unsuitable Jeremy Corbyn is, to make it about the leaders of the parties rather than their policies or anything else about them, to maximise the number of seats she can get. But there are other reasons as well, because, as I say, she is genuinely opposed to Brexit. So you'd think to yourself, I've certainly thought to myself, I've actually said this on this channel a number of times, surely you can just get behind Jeremy Corbyn. Yes, we know he's not going to do what's really needed. What's really needed is for an interim Prime Minister to come in, of course, to seek the extension. You're on a winner straight away getting rid of Boris Johnson. Look at the damage Boris Johnson has done just yesterday. Look at the damage he's done the last few weeks. He has caught the country, the United Kingdom, has suffered a lot of damage over the last few years due to this Brexit process. Boris Johnson has massively accelerated that rate of damage. Every day that he's Prime Minister, more damage is going to be done. Just get behind someone and replace him. That straight away is a win. If we can get an extension as well, brilliant. In fact, that is brilliant. That's mostly the aim, isn't it? At that point, however, the sensible thing to do is to deal with Brexit. Not in the way Boris Johnson means it, but by taking it back to the people, a public vote. People keep asking what should be on the ballot paper. Well, the options that we have right now. So the UK government, for good or ill, has negotiated a withdrawal agreement. Go with that, put that on there. If you must put no deal on there. Obviously remains an option as well. Deal with it to make sure it's fair and you're not splitting the leave votes there. It's like a remain or leave, and then what sort of leave do you want? And go with that and just sort it out one way or the other. Make it binding, get Parliament to pre-approve all of the outcomes so that whatever the people decide is automatically passed, done, dusted. Then have a general election. That way your general election is about things that a general election should be about, which is domestic and foreign policy, not a single issue. Because the fact of the matter is, a lot of people voting in the general election are not going to vote on just purely Brexit matters. But a lot of people are. So you confuse the whole picture. So why not, even though that's the best thing to do, if we don't get the extension, then we're sort of out, aren't we? Why not at least get the extension? While there's life, there's hope. The reason is this, and this is partly stated reasons and partly speculation here. Jo Swinson doesn't trust Jeremy Corbyn to make sure we avoid Brexit. That's the simple matter. Jeremy Corbyn himself wants Brexit. The other thing about Jeremy Corbyn is he doesn't really get involved. In fact, the picture behind me is a classic example of it. This behind me was party leaders signing the Church House Declaration. This wasn't anything to do with Brexit directly. This was a protest against the government threatening to prorogue Parliament. And of course, they ended up doing that. And you'll notice here, we've got party leaders. We've got Plaid Cymru party leader. We've got the Liberal Democrat party leader. We've got the SNP party leader. The SNP party leader in Westminster, Ian Blackford. We've got the Green Party party leader in Westminster. And we've got a representative of the Labour Party, which is not the party leader. We've got John McDonnell there. It's not Jeremy Corbyn. And that's the thing. Whenever there's been a lot of this cross-party cooperation, sure, Jeremy Corbyn has sometimes trolled along, but he hasn't really taken an active role. It's usually others that have gone along to these things. Tom Watson, John McDonnell, Sir Keir Starmer, Rebecca Long-Bailey, Diane Abbott. It's other members of the shadow cabinet that have actually gone along and really represented Labour, not so much Jeremy Corbyn. He's not, and I don't know whether it's a sense of social awkwardness or for whatever other reason, he's not really good at working with people, or he doesn't really engage with people that are not where he is. And that often means within his own party, and it definitely means with people in other parties. So there's a mistrust there because he doesn't engage, and because he's a Brexiteer, he wants Brexit. The situation, in fact, we have a really baffling situation at the moment. You definitely feel people are saying, so why does Jeremy Corbyn want to be Prime Minister? I keep asking it, and probably the answer is he doesn't. Jeremy Corbyn doesn't want to be Prime Minister right now. Reasoning is this, and this keeps cropping up in the videos I'm doing recently because it's really important. The way Jeremy Corbyn sees it, and again, this isn't entirely speculation because various members of the Labour Party, including John McDonnell, who's very close to Jeremy Corbyn, have said this over the last few years. They see Brexit killing off the Tory party, then they can just walk over the ashes and take over in number 10. The thinking is this: let Boris Johnson take us out of the EU without a deal, even better, which it's not, but from their point of view. And then have the general election. Everyone sees what a disaster it is. Tories are completely crucified at the election. So will the Brexit party be, come to that. And Labour can clean up. That's the thinking. Whether it would happen is another matter, but that's the thinking. For this to happen, Boris Johnson has to be Prime Minister. Now, here's the flip side. If Jeremy Corbyn or anyone were to take over, let's say Jeremy Corbyn were to be supported as Prime Minister. This is not what Jeremy Corbyn wants, because then what happens? He becomes Prime Minister. Then he gets the extension, let's say. Great. Then he triggers a general election. That's what he wants to do. Problem here is he's already made an arse of the last general election. He's even further behind in the polls this time. His own personal rating is much lower than it was last time as well. The chances of him being able to get a majority government is really slim. The Tories are polling ahead of him. Doesn't mean the Tories would return a majority, but actually this sequence of events with Jeremy Corbyn become Prime Minister helps the Tories because Boris Johnson will have been eased out by Parliament. His hands are completely clean of the extension. He won't have had to sign anything. He won't have had to seek an extension. Jeremy Corbyn will have done that. He gets to go to the polls in the general election and say, the will of the people hasn't been delivered because of these people in Parliament. You need to vote Tory, vote Conservative, vote Boris Johnson, and I'll make everything brilliant. And whether it would work or not, it would definitely see him do better in that general election than the current plan, which is for him to be Prime Minister and take us out of the EU and all the disaster to happen and then the general election. So there's this weird situation where, if you think about it, neither Boris Johnson probably wants Jeremy Corbyn to be in charge at the moment, and Jeremy Corbyn definitely wants Boris Johnson to be in charge at the moment. Boris Johnson's intransigence at the moment has got less to do with him being appointed Prime Minister for a few weeks and more to do with not wanting Boris Johnson replaced. So from Jo Swinson's point of view, she's looking at this situation as well, and she's looking at it and thinking, well, Jeremy Corbyn may well get the extension, but then we'll still end up with the no-deal Brexit, because she looks at the lay of the land and says, Jeremy Corbyn's silly arse will then trigger a general election, but Boris Johnson will not have suffered the political damage of either Brexit or having to seek the extension. He will be, he's at the moment down. Boris Johnson is politically down. They'll have raised him back up. Jeremy Corbyn will have given him the kiss of life. And the Tory party could easily end up still forming a government after that general election. And you could well end up in a situation where the numbers allow Brexit to happen. And she's deadly opposed to that. And I know, yes, you keep coming back to, but if Boris Johnson's still in place, then we end up going out of the EU anyway. But that's not the situation. Legally speaking, Boris Johnson cannot take us out. He is going to be compelled to seek that extension. Yes, of course, if he's really pissing off other EU nations, maybe they will say, oh, we're not going to give you the extension after all. But she's probably in contact with them. I'm not. I can only guess. And she may well be getting the view that we know what he's up to. And yes, we understand that it's not representing the UK and all the rest of it. So that's the situation from Jo Swinson. Appointing Jeremy Corbyn as Prime Minister for a few weeks and then having a general election makes it more likely that the Conservatives would win the general election. And that makes Brexit more likely. So it is possible that she believes that having Boris Johnson in charge, though unpalatable and dangerous, makes Brexit less likely than with Jeremy Corbyn in charge. Now, as I say, some of that is based on what she's been saying. Some of it is a little bit of extrapolation, therefore speculation. Take it as you will. But I hope you found the video interesting. If you'd like to support the channel further, then please click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.